There's been a lot of talk about your first level ability score increase, which you get from your race, but some people say that maybe that's not the best way to do it. I think that I have found the best way that everybody will like. And I think I have found a way to give out this first level ability score increase that I think everyone will like. And I'm not just saying that to boost my ego, and I genuinely think that most everybody is going to like this. Welcome to Intelligence 14 Wisdom 2, the weirdly named channel that you'll find yourself watching, and I want to talk about the reasons people give, the arguments people give for both sides of the current debate, except for the racism bit. I'm not touching that, but I want to talk about the pro racial ability score increase, pro class ability score increase, pro not tied to anything ability score increase. Because once I lay it out, I think you will all agree that this is one of the best solutions. So one opinion is that race should give you the first level ability score increase. In a fantasy world like this, it's not just white people and black people. This is one species and another species. This is humans and orangutans. Only the orangutans are like your elves are more dexterous, more nimble than your dwarves, who are tougher. The tieflings, the spawn of devils, are more likable or dislikable, depending on which way you're playing it, than both of them. So it makes sense, at least at the beginning of their adventuring career at level 1, certain races are better at some things than others. Over time, that will change with training and ability score increases, but it makes sense at the beginning for it to be from races. But some people say that that first option has some problems, namely that it kind of gatekeeps certain classes. For instance, orc wizards are less good than human wizards or elf wizards or gnome wizards. And that's a problem because if you want to play an orc wizard, you shouldn't feel, hampered by the fact that you're an orc. The absence of a boost to your intelligence can be anywhere from plus 5% to plus 100%, depending on all the ways I've seen statistics go, because that's statistics for you. A lot of people say that we don't want to penalize people for, less normal characters. So instead, we should have it as a class feature. Your rogues, it's dexterity, and maybe your secondary, maybe rogues is like intelligence or something, but like barbarians, actually, probably a better example. You have your strength and you have your constitution. Those are your primary and your secondary. So those ones should get the first level ability score increase. Other people say, hey, wait a moment. There's also another thing that affects this, background. And I've seen this this opinion less frequently, but I did see this a couple times while scrolling through like Twitter and Reddit. And that backgrounds should be where the ability score increases, because your background is what you were doing immediately before you became an adventurer. And so what you were doing immediately before that affects what you're good at. Like if you're a sage, your intelligence is pretty high because you've been a sage this time, and even if you go into a sorcerer, like suddenly you develop magic powers and you have to go figure out that, you're still going to be very intelligent because you were a sage like 5 minutes ago. So it makes more sense for your backgrounds to give you the ability score increase. Now there is a fourth opinion that says let's not do that. Let's either give a floating +2 to +1 to anything, or like just like change up standard array or anything. But we're going to ignore that because it's inconvenient to something I'm about to reveal, which is some very interesting math. You see, usually the racial ability score increase, they give you a +2 and a +1 to two different things. Now, 2 + 1 is 3. Oh, look at that. So, here is the idea. Each of these things, your race, your class, your background, gives you +1 to 1 ability score. I think everyone will like it because it makes sense. Your background affects what you think your character worked on. Your class is what you recently are working on, and so you started to develop that skill. And your race determines a little bit, because we're in a fantasy world, and things are a lot different from our normal society of just humans, where we do have major differences between the species that exist. So that's why I think everybody will like it, because it's all of your opinions in a way that makes them equal. Please don't leave the video now that you've got the idea, because there's a little bit more to it that makes this a more refined system, a little bit more rules to this. And also, what if I did all the work for you? So when using the system, race, class, background give you +1 to an ability score. I use the limit of you can only have +2 increase to this ability score. The reason being is D&D is designed around this bound as accuracy thing, where you're going to have about 60 to 70% chance to hit something, or accomplish something, giving characters the option to have an 18 at level 1 kind of messes with that. It's not a huge deal, like, it's not broken, but I feel like it's better to have this because it keeps within bound accuracy and also has, a bit more progression. You're not godlike at level 1. You're above average, but you're not Superman. That's why I think we have this cap of +2. Now, the way this works is actually, let's remove this thingy. There we go. Wizards aren't the only people who can do magic. So this is the table I have for classes. I'd start with classes because it's much simpler. You just increase the primary ability score of that class by 1. Now, the primary ability score is a little bit hard to define for some things. Like, for instance, Rangers, it could be Dexterity or maybe Wisdom, their spellcasting ability, or Strength if you're playing a Stranger. So it's not exactly simple, but it's more simple than the other stuff. So once we've gotten the class giving you an increase to one of your ability scores, we move on to background. You could do background and class interchangeably, but usually I'd say do those things and then do race, which I'll tell you why in a second. So for backgrounds, there we go. So there's a lot of published backgrounds in this table, which I'll link to down below. This has, I think, all of them. So for instance, your noble has, I think it's charisma, because you're able to express yourself more articulately, and people are going to like you or hate you more intensely than if you were just some ordinary Joe. We also have Acolyte, which I gave them wisdom, or your stage, it gives you intelligence. Now the thing about the background ability score increase is you can change it. These are just suggestions, alright? Criminal is a prime example. Like, maybe your criminal is not more charismatic, that's not their style. They're a thug, so they get strength. Or maybe they're more of a mastermind to get intelligence. They're the pickpocket, so they get dexterity. If you give a solid reason, or just half-decent reason why your character is not this increase, but a different increase based on their background, then I'd give it to you. Because it fits, we're trying to fit your character more appropriately, and background is one of those things where it's kind of a little bit more customizable and mutable. Now we get to the race, and the reason why I said before you want to do class and background before race is because race has 2 possibilities. You have your primary, which is from your race. Elves, they have primary as dexterity, but wood elves, they have their secondary as wisdom. You can choose between primary or secondary, but here's where that limit of +2 comes into play. Say you're a fighter who is a gladiator. That gives you, and you chose strength and then strength. Now you can't be, since you've already had +2 increases to that strength score, you can't take half orc and change that to +3 strength. So you're gonna have to take that constitution bonus. This allows your characters to be more well-rounded in their stats, just a little bit, and also it simulates the +2, +1. But if you want to do +1, +1, +1, because you have like a mad build or something, this allows for that. So race comes last in terms of a first level ability score increase in this system, which is kind of interesting because it's the first thing you are, and it's sort of like going backwards in time. Your class background, it's got some sort of symmetry to it. So that's why I chose class, background, race. So if you want to have those rules for easy reference as opposed to watching this video of me rambling, check out the link down in the description. There's a GM Binder document that I think works. I'm not sure, this is my first time on GM Binder. Also, if you're interested in more stuff about ability scores and what they mean and things like that, then check out this video where I talk about the difference between the exact definition of wisdom and intelligence in D&D. It's surprising, it's a mess, and I had a lot of fun with that video, so go ahead, watch that.